Good evening, this is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today I have a 2v2 on Medean Cliff Mines. Our first player is ChaosLibrarian as Sindri, Trollface, Chaos Sorcerer. My fellow Sorcerer player, the Sorcerer is a interesting hero, has some long-range functionality with teleporting, doom bolts, and has some crazy shenanigans in Tier 2 and Tier 3. The next player on ChaosLibrarian's team is Motherfucker Jones, playing as this Grey Knight Bro Captain, a tanky melee hero who cannot be suppressed or knocked down, has a huge Nemesis Force Sword, very tough hero. On the red team, to start out, first of all, we have Kaldoot, solid Eldar player, playing as the Warlock, looks like Uthway DLC. The Warlock is a melee hero. He has some spells. He can be a spellcaster if you upgrade him with certain war gears. He can be a tanky melee hero if you upgrade him with some other war gears. And he has a few variations in between. Finally, we have classy Brother Captain David, pretty cool guy, as this Dark Angels Force Commander with the toothbrushes on the side of his helmet. Force Commander is a tanky melee hero, upgrading to the Power Sword right now. He can disrupt. He also is just great at tying up because he's a powerful tanky melee hero. Pretty good hero overall. Alright, so ChaosLibrarian, my fellow Sorcerer player, actually going for a Chaos Space Marine. He actually says that he likes to get builds with no Chaos Space Marines. I often say that the ChaosLibrarian build is double Heretics into double Havocs. Now, the Warlock actually used his Destructor on the Chaos Space Marines, and it did pretty well. Most of the time, if you try to use Destructor on Chaos Space Marines, it will usually not do that well, or any unit that's actually slightly tankier. Now, these Heretics actually engage the Banshees, and I was going to say that that was not going to be a good engagement for them, but the Chaos Sorcerer did support there with Doom Bolts, so that helped even things out a bit. Forced the Banshees to retreat because they took a lot of area of effect damage, and then of course these Chaos Space Marines were also supporting with their ranged fire. Over here, Motherfucker Jones has double Stormtroopers, so that's going to give him, basically he now has 3 units that he can use to focus down the Force Commander with. Force Commander actually gets pretty close to getting eliminated or incapacitated. And it's now actually going to be a triple cap for the blue team. So good early engagements for the blue team. They do take that early lead. This node from classy Brother Captain David will go down, and it looks like, yes, Motherfucker Jones will start capturing it. So he does have that double Stormtrooper build, along with the Strike Squad. That's actually a lot of range fire coming out of the Grey Knights, in addition to having a tanky melee hero go around. Chaos Sorcerer is upgrading to the Vestments of the Warp. It does allow the Sorcerer to teleport. Just one of the basic things that you do with the Sorcerer. It's especially going to be useful now that Kaldoot has a Ranger squad. Rangers, you kind of do need to have some kind of jump unit to deal with them. Especially if you're playing as one of the races that will really get bled very badly by Rangers, one of which is Chaos. Now, part of the problem with teleporting in against Rangers is that Banshees will be acting as a bodyguard for the Rangers. And those Banshees, they're definitely going to be winning over the Sorcerer with his vanilla sword. He can get the Fire Sword to even things out a bit, but even that is somewhat risky. Chaos Havocs actually get down to their last model, and that's very risky. The models were getting sniped, so that is a lot of reinforcement cost for actually ChaosLibrarian to reinforce those Havoc models. And then whenever the lead model gets sniped on a Havoc squad, it actually will stop shooting that Heavy Bolter, and that is a chance for a unit to get in on the Heavy Bolter and tie it up even. So looks like now Red has won their engagements. They are going to get a 2-cap, but ChaosLibrarian is already back out on the field, does have his Chaos Space Marines. They are now being detected, so Rangers are the detector unit for Eldar, as well as being a unit that you need to detect because they can cloak. I often say that Rangers are the least convenient detector unit, and that is because, first of all, many other detectors come on they come as upgrades on another squad. That is, right here we see the Aspiring Champion on the Heretic. You already have a Heretic squad to start out. You don't need to buy an entire squad to get a Detector. You only need to upgrade to a squad leader, which costs less. And then most of those Detectors are on very essential squads. Heretics, Scouts, Shooter Boys. And then many of the other Detector squads are just have a little more, they have a little more general purpose use than Rangers, like the Warriors as well as the Catachans. Over here, those Assault Space Marines in a lot of trouble, just got knocked down by the Strike Squad, but the Strike Squads are actually getting out of there because they are getting hit by that Power Sword Force Commander. Do not want to lose too many models, since those Strike Squads are 83 requisition to reinforce. The Assault Space Marines are actually 83 requisition to reinforce as well, in addition to also 8 power. So those guys definitely bleed quite a bit. Now the Bro Captain is chasing around these Space Marines. Now, interestingly, David actually he actually force meleeed the Stormtroopers with his Scouts, which I feel like was not the best idea. By Maestro's law of comparative advantage, either the Force Commander should have gone for melee in with the Stormtroopers, or the Tactical Marines should have done that. Basically, just they're better in melee than the Scouts. The Scouts are primarily a ranged unit. Ultimately, that did work out in David's favor anyway, just to get those Stormtroopers to stop firing their grenades. I just think it would have worked out better if he had chosen that. But I mean, ultimately, I'm splitting hairs here. But I do often like to think in terms of what is the ideal choice. Havoc is setting up. I think should actually... I feel like that Havoc should go and help support the middle instead of joining this. Instead of basically trying to deal with only one unit, as it is, Motherfucker Jones is fighting both the Eldar as well as the Force Commander here by himself, and he does get forced off in part because of it. Chaos Librarian is down here. Chaos Librarian with a pretty lean build, only getting a Havoc, Chaos Space Marine, and one Chaos Heretic squad. So pretty light build from Chaos Librarian. Usually goes for, he goes for builds that are longer usually, but not necessarily cheaper, since he often gets Heretics and does not get Chaos Space Marines. Now we actually have Purifiers out for Motherfucker Jones. A little surprised to see that. Some people, I think, have been saying that the Purifiers are underperforming, that they're not that good. But I mean, we're still talking about a durable, heavy melee squad. Still definitely can have some use. I think the main thing is just that it's hard to justify getting Purifiers, I think, when the Grey Knight Dreadnought is probably just a better choice. Better because, first of all, it's a vehicle. It carries that threat of being a vehicle. It does have that powerful Melta. We now do have, speaking of Melta, we now do have the Wraith Guard. Even though their attack looks very similar to the D-Cannon, they actually do Melta damage. Chaos Librarian, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, the main way to deal with Wraith Guard is to get into melee with them. So the Chaos Space Marines tried to force melee, but now need to get those Chaos Heretics out of there. Those Heretics were stalling out the Banshees, but now they are going to get wiped by the Banshees, which is very unfortunate. So Chaos Librarian definitely hurting at this point. Lost his Heretics, lost that engagement, and now only has 2 units. Over here, shotguns are knocking down, I guess, those Purifiers. The Purifiers, I think, should more or less beat the Assault Space Marines, especially an Assault Space Marine squad that only has 3 members. Purifiers will be doing more damage. They do have power melee. Right now, the Purifiers are very low on health, though, losing 2 models. So giving away 21 red with each model loss. So we do now have a Dreadnought for Chaos Librarian. Chaos Librarian now going more for a Maestro Cortella build, except for that he usually likes to get Blood Crushers instead of Dreadnoughts, except for now that he actually has the Mark of Khorne on his Dreadnought. And when he does get Dreadnoughts, he often likes to get the Mark of Khorne first. Now, Mark of Khorne has definitely been less common in the Elite mod than in Retail, in part because the Blood Rage was decreased from 30 seconds to only 15 seconds. So it's not really as good for trapping players in their base like it was in Retail, because once that Blood Rage goes down, the Dreadnought, it does become very vulnerable. and especially with the damage reduction, the now 50% damage reduction in the elite mod that you get when in base. It's not going to be as good for that since it will not be doing as much damage. Chaos Space Marines still running around vanilla. Chaos Librarian could definitely stand to get... Well, I was going to say he could stand to get an upgrade on his Chaos Space Marines, although I actually think he should probably invest in one more unit first before he gets an upgrade on his Chaos Space Marines. Not necessarily sure what unit, but I think he should get some kind of unit. Something that might be able to better deal with the Banshees, better able to deal with his Bright Lance, or, I mean, just something else. Even just another Heretic Squad wouldn't be bad. But he actually has... Oh my god, that Bright Lance might actually get wiped by this Chaos Dreadnought walking straight up to it. No, the Bright Lance just barely managed to get out of there. But that Chaos Dreadnought did a special attack, did a ton of damage, and then activated Blood Rage. Lucky for kaldoot, got a sync kill on the Bright Lance, so the rest of the models got out. Chaos Librarian winning in his lane, well, but it looks like Motherfucker Jones is getting chased down a bit, but his Bro Captain does teleport in, does have the Nemesis Force Sword. I'm surprised to see that upgrade. The other weapons are so much more powerful for the Bro Captain. This Force Sword, the main thing is just that it... wow, that was awesome! So Chaos Librarian had his Havoc in retreat, was getting chased down by Banshees, and Chaos Librarian actually timed a Sigil of the Rift so that it teleported the Banshees away from the Havoc. And those Banshees would have wiped that Havoc, so an excellent save. I'm a little sad that I didn't get that save a little more squarely in the middle of the camera, but it was still a brilliant play from Chaos Librarian. That's one of the things I like about Chaos Librarian. He plays the Sorcerer, so obviously I'm going to like him. But he plays the Sorcerer, and he's really someone who shows just how interesting the Sorcerer can be, and shows a lot of the reasons why I play the Sorcerer. He's probably a better Sorcerer player than me. But basically, we just see interesting things from him. I mean, there are certainly times when other people play the Sorcerer too, but usually not as interesting. I mean, I've seen Tiger play the Sorcerer. Tiger is an extremely good player, but I think from him you definitely just see a lot more basic Sorcerer play, and I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just not as interesting. Purifiers are chasing down that Wraith Guard, and they will certainly be very good, but another Sigil of the Rift teleports that Bright Lance out of there, and that's going to be a wipe on the Bright Lance. Another brilliant Sigil of the Rift play by Chaos Librarian. Just get it. And now, not only did he take out the Bright Lance, he took the Bright Lance out of position, wiped it, and now that means his Chaos Dreadnought isn't threatened nearly as much now that the Bright Lance isn't out on the field. So some brilliant plays. Chaos Librarian now getting a second Dreadnought. Certainly not something I disapprove of at all. Gets a Mark of Tzeentch on this one. Not a bad idea. Such great AV damage on that Mark of Tzeentch Dreadnought. Bro Captain actually switches to the Nemesis Force Halberd this time, so he's going to be doing a lot more damage. 83.33 DPS power melee along with some splash. Actually uses the grenades on the Stormtroopers, does a skill shot to actually knock down the Force Commander. And we actually had a warp throw from the Warlock, I think. Or no, that wasn't the warp throw from the Warlock, was it? Where is the Warlock? Yeah, he's right here. So that was warp throw from the Warlock. Alright, and now a Blood Rage, Chaos Dreadnought, just going in again, actually going in on kaldoot's base. And I had actually said before that the Blood Rage Chaos Dreadnought not going to be as good for that as it was back in retail, but still actually doing just fine. Going to start taking some shots from the Wraith Guard, which will do a lot of damage. That cooldown from... And now we actually have the Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Dreadnought supporting. But I think we're starting to get to the point where Chaos Librarian might be overextending. Does activate Blood Rage again, but now he has both Dreadnoughts very close to his base. Starting to take shots from classy Brother Captain David's fully upgraded Predator, now with the las cannon. So Chaos Librarian will need to use the Warp Global if he wants to get his Chaos Dreadnought out alive, but it actually just dies outright there of taking a las cannon shot, a Wraith Guard shot, as well as a Fire Prism shot all at once. So Chaos Librarian does not save that Dreadnought. This one is still alive. Still unupgraded Chaos Space Marines. I certainly feel like with those double Dreadnoughts, he's got a pretty comfortable comfortably strong build. Oh my god, that could be a dead fire prism. Took a las cannon shot from that infiltrated las cannon. Now takes missile shots, and he has a dead las cannon. So again, good, smart play by Chaos Librarian, using the infiltration from those heretics to wipe that vehicle. Basically infiltrated Havocs from long range, snared that vehicle, and then just the follow-up damage from this Mark of Tzeentch cast Dreadnought doing very good damage to help take out that vehicle. And one of the things about the infiltration from the heretics, it's not completely useless even if your opponent has a detector, because detectors have limited range. Those las cannons have extremely long range, so your opponent can't even see that Havoc. Can't even see that Havoc because it's out of detection range. Looks like Motherfucker Jones has pushed up all the way over here, actually managed to get a cap on Brother Captain David's natural VP. In fact, the funny thing is that the blue team now has all of the power farms on the map. Chaos Librarian used that push with the Dreadnought to not only capture, but also node Kaldoot's natural power farm. Motherfucker Jones actually was able to decap and then cap Brother Captain David's natural power farm, although he did just lose a Stormtrooper squad in the process. So that power income, even with this power farm no longer in the blue team's favor, it's now a plus 79 power income for the blue team with only now plus 36. It was actually at like plus 19 or so without that power farm going back to the red team. So certainly some very strong plays by the blue team. Certainly Chaos Librarian really flexing his muscles, exerting a lot of dominance. His Sorcerer in a little bit of trouble, and I think actually will go down here. Just got knocked down, got hit by a las cannon. Let's see, that Chaos Sorcerer just barely teleports out of there and actually gets out with 1 health. Chaos Heretics now in a lot of trouble, retreating through Dire Avengers, through Vanguard Veterans. A grenade goes off, tries to take out that Chaos Heretic, and the Heretic just barely gets out alive. But now the Predator goes down for Brother Captain David. Again, these las cannon shots just going in from long range, snaring that Predator and doing quite a bit of damage. So much has gone on. Oh! And those Vanguard Veterans. We do have Vanguard Veterans for Brother Captain David. That elite tier 3 melee unit upgrade that you get for Assault Space Marines. It does give them both a base DPS upgrade, as well as changing all of their weapons to power weapons. So actually, at one point I checked it up on the Dawn of War wiki. Those power swords, they function much like the ASM Sergeant power swords, so they do about 30.77 DPS power melee. The Lightning Claw functions much like the Raptor power melee power claw on their aspiring champion, so it does about 40 DPS power melee, and then the Thunderhammer I believe does 50. So all of these models, all of these power sword or power weapon models, do more damage than the regular ASM models, in addition to every single one of them doing power melee. So it's actually a pretty beastly squad. Sometimes it's still sometimes potentially somewhat unnecessary. The Assault Space Marines, first of all, upgrading to Vanguards does reset their levels, and I mean, if you've already leveled them up a bit, they're going to be pretty nice. And too many model losses on those Vanguard Veterans goes down to 1 model, and those are not cheap to reinforce at all. So not there. A little overextension by Brother Captain David. Over here, looks like Kaldoot is actually doing pretty well in his lane. Does have a webway gate set up so he can just appear right out of here and start capturing this point. And this is the blue team natural, but Kaldoot has it. Over here, another webway gate, so Kaldoot can do the same over here. This is actually the red team natural. And a lot of things are dying right here. I saw a plus 40 from what, but I don't know. The Grey Knight Terminators now out for Motherfucker Jones, fighting against these Assault Terminators from classy Brother Captain David. Now the Grey Knight Terminators do have halberds with
power melee splash damage, so I would think that they would have the advantage over these Assault Terminators with their heavy melee damage. But it actually looks like Force Commander went down. Yeah, now the Assault Terminators are definitely starting to lose. But the Grey Knight Terminator is actually in a lot of trouble, down to 2 models. A regular Assault Terminator goes down. This is a surprisingly unexciting fight for it being a bunch of Terminators. But this Grey Knight Terminator might actually die right there, being chased down by the Vanguard Veterans. That could be, but the Vanguard Veterans do get disrupted, but they get up and they start chasing again. Yeah, that's going to be a dead Grey Knight Terminator. So Grey Knight Terminator squad already dead. For Motherfucker Jones. We now have an infiltrated Predator from Chaos Librarian. This is going to be some major AV out of Chaos Librarian with a Las Cannon Predator as well as a Chaos Dreadnought. So he's actually, it looks like, I'm guessing he's going to force melee with the Chaos Dreadnought. Yeah, because he wants those Wraith Guard to get melee. So the Sorcerer tries to do another Sigil of the Rift, but unfortunately misses. This Chaos Dreadnought actually looks like it's somewhat in trouble, but he does teleport it out of there, while an orbital bombardment goes in for Motherfucker Jones. Gets pretty much the entire Eldar army. A fairly good orbital, but so far I don't think anything actually died. Howling Banshee's definitely in a little bit of trouble, though. Howling Banshees actually get wiped by the range fire. Still no upgrade on this Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marine squad. I think, especially at this point, with Chaos Librarian definitely having a pretty comfortable army, 5 units, a Predator, a Chaos Dreadnought, he should upgrade his Chaos Space Marines. They're just so much better when upgraded than when they're not. I don't know whether he wants to get Tzeentch or Mark of Khorne, but he should get one. As long as if he's just gonna use them as range Chaos Space Marines, then he should just get the Mark of Tzeentch. Alright, over here, ASM jump in. Now, the combination of the ASM and the tax, I think, should beat the Purifiers, but then we also have this Strike Squad supporting. Oh, and we do have that area of effect ability from the Purifiers doing plasma damage in an area, doing quite a bit of damage to these tax. It takes a lot of their health, but does not kill a single model. Now, one of the things I've been seeing Chaos Librarian doing is that he actually seems to be guarding this lane strictly with his Chaos Sorcerer. Basically, he's in this lane, keeping his Chaos Sorcerer in this lane away from his main force, which he's keeping in the middle lane, and mainly fighting in the middle lane with the rest of his forces. Keeps the Chaos Sorcerer bodyguarding this VP and contributing in whatever way he can by using Sigil of the Rift, as well as teleporting when necessary. What does he teleport here? Does not actually teleport anything. It misses those Rangers, I think. But he's trying to keep his Chaos Sorcerer in the other lane and support from there. Unfortunately, he loses Havoc Squad, loses Chaos Dreadnought Squad. Chaos Dreadnought Squad. That would be beastly, a Chaos Dreadnought Squad. But he loses his Chaos Dreadnought. But he was keeping the Sorcerer in that lane. He was also keeping his Sorcerer in that lane just in case he needed to warp the Dreadnought out. Basically, it's as long as he's in this lane, he can warp the Dreadnought to safety. Ooh, look at all those units getting knocked back by the Fire Prism. The Fire Prism is an artillery tank. That's the main thing you really need to understand about it. It seems weak. It does not have much health, but it has massive range, and it also knocks back. It's actually extremely useful if you keep it behind your army, and then you're just disrupting your opponent's army as they're trying to fight the rest of your army. Because they basically can't do much. They're getting disrupted. They can't even get in range of the Fire Prism. Right now, these Terminators are keeping the Bro Captain busy. The Bro Captain needs to turn and deal with the Scouts so he can get them off the cap. As it is, we do have Purgations, or actually the Strike Squad, trying to threaten those Scouts, but they get jumped by the Vanguard Veterans, and they will lose majorly to the Vanguard Veterans. Ooh, Scouts actually get very close to dying, but so does that Bro Captain. He has to teleport out of there, and he will not be able to stop either the Terminators or the Force Commander from capturing that point. Now, Chaos Librarian has been using his Sorcerer to guard this lane, but he doesn't know about this Webway Gate, and Kaldoot is just using that Webway Gate to back cap. It's very useful. Unfortunately, Chaos Librarian just hasn't really caught on, I guess. This is a pretty good position for a webway gate, but very smart for Chaos Librarian to subjugate those Wraith Guard to get them off the cap. Because he could have chose to just attack the Wraith Guard, but the Wraith Guard are fairly tanky. They do have a lot of health. They also are immune to knockback. So kaldoot could have possibly even just captured the point even through the Sorcerer trying to attack him. So that subjugate was very smart. It doesn't seem like it did much, but it was the right thing to do. Unfortunately, the Sorcerer looks like he will get forced off right here. He's charging this Guardian weapon team, but he actually gets killed by the Guardians defending the D-Cannon. Now that was kind of funny, considering, I mean, you usually don't consider those Guardian members of setup teams worth much. Fluff-wise or story-wise, they are supposed to be bodyguards, and right there, they actually did act as a bodyguard. They shot down that Chaos Sorcerer on approach, and kaldoot's actually putting a lot of pressure on the blue team natural. Can't keep Chaos Librarian can't seem to get it back. It does get Bloodletters now, and maybe they can get it back, because certainly if the Dire Avengers try to capture this point, the Bloodletters will destroy them. But now we have Wraith Guard support again coming right out of that webway gate. Webway gates are so good. Oh, and we do have an Imperial Abyss going somewhere. Where is it? Trying to find it right here. Not a great Imperial Abyss, though, by Chaos Librarian. Maybe just a desperate attempt, but ultimately not that good. And these Bloodletters, they tried fighting off these forces. They would certainly destroy those Wraith Guard. But now we have the Witchblade of Kurnos on the Warlock. It's very much like an anti-melee unit attack. Certainly going to be very good against Bloodletters that try to get in on that Warlock. So, Chaos looks like Motherfucker Jones is trying to capture this point. The problem is that he only has a Land Raider Crusader. He does have the Bro Captain right here, but the Bro Captain at this point, if he fights the Terminators as well as the Tax, he will actually get killed. And that's the only unit Motherfucker Jones has in play here that can capture this point, so he's not going to be able to get this point. Too much pressure from the Terminators and the Tax. Tax actually used They Shall Know No Fear to break suppression over here. So, I mean, Chaos Librarian just hasn't been able to get to his own natural VP, and he's getting the middle VP, but I don't think that's going to be enough. Now with the red team getting their natural VP, 2-cap for the red team. The best the blue team is going to do is a single cap right here, and they're going to get that single cap, but they ultimately lose the game. And that's strange, considering Chaos Librarian and Motherfucker Jones, they had such advantage right here, and ultimately they lost it. They had all of the power on the map. They had a VP lead of, it was definitely something like at least 300 to 175. But ultimately they lost it. So pretty good play in the end, particularly by kaldoot with those webway gates. Very good. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.